In some ways, what David did through anthropology was bring to life what Gustav Landauer described as the state being a relationship. And we change the state by contracting different kinds of relationship. And we need to know no more than that it's possible to do that. Simply planting the seed of possibility is a powerful enough thing to do. And actually, in some ways, anarchists ought to, especially ones of the theoretical bent, ought to relax and take that really as the main message, that actually right now we just need to believe in possibility. And that brings me to my sort of final remarks, and that is the other side of David's work, which was not just to use anthropology to enrich and modify anarchism, but to use anarchism to enrich and modify anthropology, or more broadly, academic life. It mattered to David to bring anarchist ideas back into the academy. And it mattered because actually the academy is one of the least likely spaces that you'll ever find anarchy, particularly not a variety of anarchy that stresses possibility rather than foregone conclusion. Traditionally, conventionally, our intellectual culture has rested on the assumption that in anthropology, for example, to do something like ethnography is a sort of either a preliminary or a secondary exercise, but it's never the main event. What you do is either you have a theory and then you go out and collect the data to substantiate it, or you collect a bunch of data and you infer from that a theory. And there is always the notion that theory is how we make progress, intellectual progress, that we aggregate this information and that this way we can cope with much more complexity. But of course, that's not true. Anytime you make that kind of a selection, you cause a reduction. You cause a reduction in the world. You actually lose more complexity. We even lose the memory that we ought to be looking or even asking different kinds of questions. So I think the other element that really matters to me about David's work, someone who is within the academy, occasionally, most of the time fairly awkwardly so, or slightly uncomfortably so, actually his version of anarchy releases this whole, it's an invitation to a whole new radical way to do intellectual life, to be much more open rather than closing things down, and this is not the same as relativism. It is in the sense that no position is that static for long enough. Positions are always encountering and modifying and adapting and changing one another. It genuinely is a sort of free-flowing and organic phenomenon. So I think David asks us to disentangle knowledge from authority and to reframe that relationship to knowledge as a form of discovery, and above all, knowledge as an openness to possibilities. And that is why right now, at this moment in time, he matters more than ever, and his ideas matter more than ever. So that's my pitch to you. I'm hoping that you've got lots of thoughts or questions or comments about any of this sort of related topics, or James equally, if you do too.